For class number 6 of Hobby Azon, we're going to be learning about long-term traffic tactics. Now, this is the final class in this series. Up until this point, you should have your entire website created and have a pretty good understanding of how you're operating the website and your group and managing your audience on an ongoing basis. So the whole point of this particular class is not to help you build your website in any particular fashion. Instead, I want to focus on different things that you can do going forward in the future with your website, with your Facebook group and your audience to help you to build more traffic. Now, you will get traffic simply from publishing content on your site through search engines, for example, but the tactics that I'm going to be discussing here will help you to increase the search engine traffic that you'll receive, and it will help you to enhance that search traffic with traffic from other sources, specifically from your audience. Now, with that said, you could kind of consider everything that I'm going to be teaching you in this particular class to be optional. You could just build a basic website about your niche, about your hobby, and leave it at that. You could run your group then and still refer to that same content that you have built up. However, if you are dealing with a hobby like mine, where there is a massive amount of information that you could possibly put out there on your website, or there is ongoing information and updates that you could be posting there, that kind of makes for a better candidate for focusing on some of these tactics that I'll be talking to you about today. So with that said, don't take everything that I'm teaching in this particular lesson as something that you have to do. Think about whether or not these tactics make sense for your website, for your group, for your hobby, and simply the way you would like to be running everything. So with that said, I want to go ahead and dive into the first tactic that I want to be discussing with you today, and that is niche keyword content. Now, to a certain extent, I have kind of already talked to you about these sorts of things in previous lessons when we were actually building up the website and brainstorming ideas for content. If you feel like your hobby has a lot of content or ongoing content that you could be publishing, then this tactic is really more for you. This does apply to my particular hobby, so this is something that I would like to be doing with my website going forward into the future. The main idea here is simply to get a good understanding of what kind of content you really want to have on your website. This can simply be done by just brainstorming a list of content ideas, but really get in depth with it. One example that I have mentioned in a previous lesson having to do with brainstorming new content ideas going forward has to do with, at least with my hobby, having different pages on the different species of these plants, because there are actually hundreds of different species of carnivorous plants. So I could build a really large library containing pictures, growing information, natural habitat information, all kinds of stuff like that to make kind of a resource library for my hobby. This is something that I could refer people to in the future when they're asking, hey, how do you grow this particular plant? I can just point them to a web page. But then search engines are also going to pick up this kind of content that you put out there. So if you're basing any of this content, any of these potential future ideas on actual search engine keyword traffic, you're even more likely to tap into something that will give you ongoing regular traffic in the future. One of the easiest ways that you can find out this type of stuff is by simply using the Google Keyword Planner. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth with using this. I have demonstrated this to you before. The Google Keyword Planner, it's through Google AdWords. If you're not sure how to find it, just search Keyword Planner on Google and you'll get a link to it. You do need to have a Google account, but you don't have to actually advertise on Google AdWords. You can see I don't have an active advertising account here, and yet I am still able to use this particular Keyword Planner service. Now, the idea here is simply to find out whether or not there is a demand for content on a particular topic, whether or not people are searching for that specific topic on search engines, and specifically Google here. For my hobby, and for at least one of the potential branches of content, the different species of these plants, I can use Google as a way to help me to figure out whether or not this would actually be worthwhile, whether there is traffic out there to justify creating the content to try to attract that traffic. Now, since I already have a lot of personal knowledge about this particular hobby, it's fairly easy for me to try to figure out what these keywords are going to be. I can just search one of the types of carnivorous plants in the Google Keyword Planner and browse through the list and easily pick out the different species of these plants. Nepenthes alata right here shows 100 to 1,000 monthly searches. Raja also is showing the same. Ambularia is showing the same. Ventricosa showing the same. Now, all of these plants are just a small example of the different species that are available. So what I could simply do is make a list of these different species. Not only am I ending up with a list, but I'm also ending up with a list of species that I know there is search traffic for. Now, I don't necessarily know where within this range the traffic is. I could try to investigate this information further, but since I might be researching a couple hundred topic ideas here, it's not really that important that I know the exact traffic amounts for each of these keywords that I'm going to target. I just simply want to know that there is some traffic that is out there looking for these topics. And I prefer to find them in this range, 100 to 1,000. If it's at least 100 monthly searches, then this particular content could potentially bring you a couple of visitors per day to your website from Google that would just be landing on this particular page of content. And that's just at a bare minimum if you're on the bottom end of this range. And remember, this is just one page of content. You multiply this times 20 or 50 or 100, and you can end up to where you're getting hundreds or even thousands of daily visitors, especially considering some of your keywords end up maybe more in the middle or on the higher end of this range. So again, I can simply continue and make a list of all the different species for these plants here. Now, it's also for my purposes, since I want to be providing pictures and growing information and things like that, it's also important that any of these plants that I want to try to target, that I'm actually growing them, because that way I have the first-hand information and I can actually take pictures of them myself, even progression pictures over time where you can see the plant as a juvenile and then you can see it progressing over the years into a full-grown plant, even see it flowering, see the different pictures that it produces. All of this kind of information is a treasure trove for people that are interested in this hobby, especially people that are just getting started in the hobby, and they're a lot more likely to be interested in the other things that I have to offer on my site, especially the things that are going to result in me earning affiliate commissions. Now, there are other ways that I could go about trying to track down a list of these different species instead of trying to pick them out one by one. I could just simply go to Google and see if there's a website where there is a list of all of these different species. And Wikipedia happens to actually have one, and quite a few other websites also have a listing of the species for this particular type of plant. So you can see here, I now have a listing on the left of all of these different Nepenthes species. Not only that, but I have a good resource for some kind of basic information for each of these species that I could use for reference. And I can always reference the Wikipedia page as the source for some of this information, but then provide my own pictures and my own personal experiences with these plants also to go along with it. That way I am providing something unique, a reason why people would want to go to my site instead of perhaps the individual Wikipedia pages. So I could now take this particular list of plants, and if I wanted to verify whether or not there's search traffic for it, all I have to do is pick one out and go back over to the Google Keyword Planner, and I can search for that specific keyword phrase and see if there is traffic for it or not. Now obviously, seeing as how I have quite a large list, just for the Nepenthes, there are 170 recognized species of this particular plant, and there's more being discovered every year because these plants live in tropical jungles. You can kind of see this picture here. We're kind of in between Asia and Africa and Australia. All of these islands, a lot of them are very mountainous. This is where Nepenthes come from. And a lot of these areas are some of the last remaining unexplored areas on Earth because they're so hard to get to. And so they're still finding these plants all the time. Now, in addition to Nepenthes, there are a number of other types of carnivorous plants out there that I could also try to produce different content pages for. I have the North American pitcher plant. There's between 8 and 11 species of them, depending on who you ask and how you try to break it down. There's also sundews, which are referred to as Drosera. There's at least 194 different species of these sundews. Now, I don't personally grow all of these different kinds of carnivorous plants. Utricularia has 233 different species. I don't actually grow any of these on purpose, although I do have one of these kind of as like a hitchhiker in a pot of mine. But for the most part, I tend to focus on the pitcher plants. I do Nepenthes, I do Sarracenia, I do the cephalotus from Australia, and I also grow Venus flytraps. So obviously for my personal preferences, I guess, within the hobby, I would only want to be targeting a certain section of the whole carnivorous plant world. But there's a huge section of it still that I wouldn't be covering. I could try to add that stuff in at a later point in time. I can maybe even try to get other people who are into those specific types of plants to try to produce content for me for those things. Again, this is just a way to explore future content that you can create. And this is just giving you one possible example using my particular hobby. Every different hobby will be different in its own right. Obviously, plant hobbies, you have all the different species you can go by. Any other hobby that you have, you're not going to have this straightforward, listing of different types of content that you can try to target. However, you should still have something in your hobby that you can break down in this type of manner. It could be a list of activities, it could be a list of different equipment or gear or things that you use in your hobby. It could be a list of different collectible items within your hobby. It really just kind of depends on what your personal hobby is going to be in terms of how do you come up with this list of really in-depth content topics that you can work on going forward for your website. So your ultimate goal is to come up with the list first of all. And this list is something you will want to use going into the future. You don't have to, try to tackle a couple hundred pages worth of content all at one time. But going forward, this gives you ideas of things to do on your site when you want to add new content. Maybe you want to try to add one new page of content every week or one new page of content every month. Whatever your personal pace preference really would be, it doesn't matter. The point is, if you do want to increase the amount of content you offer, just build it up at some sort of steady pace. This also gets your audience used to you releasing it at that particular pace and makes it to where they're a lot more likely to be there ready to consume this content that you're putting out. So over the course of time, refer back to this list that you come up with and slowly build this content into your site. Whether it's you doing it or getting other people to help you out with it or possibly even do all of it for you. Things like that I'll be discussing a little bit more going forward in this lesson. Some ways that you could go about doing that, maybe even getting people to do it for you for free, possibly. Now, one of the other important things is content maintenance. As you create content and promote products from your hobby website, you can just abandon that content and leave it there to do its own thing and not worry about it. However, if you put a little bit of time and effort into going back and revisiting your existing content just to make sure everything is as good as it could possibly be, to make sure there's no leaks in your whole promotion plan, which I'll get to in a minute. This simply helps to ensure that your site stays as profitable as possible going into the future. The first part of this has to do with traffic and sales data. You can use Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and also your Amazon affiliate account. There are stats available in all three of these different services. And again, you can use this information to diagnose problems with your content or to simply identify the things that are working the best for you so you can try to reproduce that situation for other topics within your hobby. Now the other part involves product viability. This simply means the things that you promote on Amazon, are they still available to buy? Over the course of time, the products that are on Amazon, some of them may get replaced with new product listings. Some of them may even get completely replaced by new models of that product. And so a product that was available and was selling really well a couple of years ago, today it might still be good and it might not be. The only way you really know for sure is if you go back and you look into your stats, you check out these products that you're promoting on some kind of a regular basis just to make sure that nothing has changed there that would cause you to need to go back in and make some adjustments. So if you find that you're promoting a product that's no longer available a year or two down the road, you simply have to swap it out for a different product that is available. So the clicks that you're generating can actually result in affiliate commissions. Now again, stuff like this is not absolutely necessary, but if you do create a website and just leave it sitting there for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years especially, you're almost definitely going to have at least some of your products that might not be viable anymore at a later point in time. So on a best case scenario, if you can check up on this type of information once a month or so, you'll put yourself in the best position to not have any of these leaks where you are basically driving traffic to products that can't possibly be sold. And so obviously, if you have a lot of traffic leaks like that on your website, you just simply end up losing sales. So checking it once a month or so helps ensure that if these problems do come into existence on your website, that they're simply not there for an extended period of time. Now, if you don't have a lot of time to devote to your website, or maybe you run a number of different websites, going back and checking everything once a month might be a little bit overkill. It might be too much work to simply try to tackle every month. If that's the case, you can scale that back, but just simply try to be checking it as often as you possibly can, because the longer it remains unchecked, the more of a chance there is that a situation like that can arise. Now, just so you have an idea of what exactly I'm talking about here, I don't have a lot of long-term data built up for this website that I can really use to show you yet, but I obviously have other websites that have been running for a lot longer that have a lot more of this type of stuff built up that I can demonstrate this same type of thing to you. So with that said, when you're building your own website, if you just created it last month, there's probably not any point in doing this type of stuff yet. You usually need to give it at least a few months in the beginning, possibly even more. You may even need to wait 6 months to a year to get a website really kicking in terms of having a lot of daily traffic on it to where the stats for any given month actually matter. If you look at too small of a span of data, too small of a sample, then you may come to some conclusions that aren't necessarily correct. For example, you might be driving a lot of traffic to a product on Amazon and thinking people aren't buying this product, but you might only be looking at 10 or 20 clicks or something like that, when in fact you may need to send 40 or 50 clicks to that product to actually drive a sale, which is actually not an unrealistic number. So with that said, it's important to make sure you're looking at enough data. I recommend at least a couple of thousand visitors worth of data. And if you have access to even more than that, if you can look at 6 months worth of data all at one time, instead of just 1 month before you draw conclusions about whether things are working correctly on your site or not, you'll simply make better decisions there. Otherwise, you can just sit there and spin your wheels and make changes and not really know whether or not the things you're doing are having positive or negative effects. So you do want to dive into this stuff kind of slowly. Make sure you have a lot of data to work with, and then when you feel like changes might be needed, make the changes very slowly. Small changes, give it a month or two to wait and see how those changes take effect, how it affects your data, to really determine whether or not those changes are helping or harming you. So with that said, what you want to be looking for inside of Google Analytics, if you go to acquisition and queries under one of your websites, as long as you have your analytics account linked to your search console account, then it's going to provide you with this data. If you don't have it linked, it'll prompt you. It'll have a button right here that'll say link this up, and you scroll down to the bottom of the page where it says Search Console, and then I think it's click on a little edit link to get it to connect up with the site that you have loaded into Google Search Console. Once those are connected, they can share their data, and you can get keyword traffic and other types of data all into your Google Analytics account. Using this data, you can figure out which keywords you're ranking for. You can find out how many impressions you're getting on those searches, how many clicks you're getting, what your click-through ratio is, and even what your average ranking is in the search engine. So with this particular data, what you're looking for is pages that are either performing really well or pages that are performing poorly. A page that's performing really well, it might have a top 10 Google ranking, which you can tell from this average position. If it's 10 or higher, then on average your website is showing up in the top 10 Google results for that particular keyword. Once you have a good ranking, then you want to ensure that the traffic searching for that keyword is actually clicking on your result. Otherwise, they're never getting to your website. Having that ranking doesn't actually benefit you unless they click. So the click-through ratio gives you an indication as to how much of the total search traffic you're actually receiving in clicks to your website. If you find that you have a really low percentage number with a certain keyword phrase, go and search that keyword phrase. See what your result looks like on Google. See what text is being displayed. Maybe you can alter that text to make your result a little more appealing to click on. Simple changes like that can result in a drastic increase in your click-through ratio. However, keep in mind that your click-through ratio will also be drastically affected by one other major factor that is a little bit out of your control, and that is the average position. The higher your search ranking in terms of each group of 10, so if you're ranked number 1 as opposed to being ranked number 10, you're going to have a much higher click-through ratio. You can see this pretty clear on this keyword phrase right here, and even on the one on the bottom. I rank an average of 2.3 here and 2.6 on this particular keyword phrase. My click-through ratios are above 41%. So this means for every search that's coming in, 41% of those searchers end up clicking on my listing. That's simply because the higher up you are, the more clicks you get. So for my rankings that are averaging, say, 4 or 5, for them to have click-through ratios of 10 to 17% or so, it doesn't mean that I necessarily need to go and edit the text that the search engine is trying to display for those listings. It simply means that they're getting less click-throughs because they're ranked a couple of spots lower on average than these keywords that are bringing me high click-through ratios. The ones you should be concerned about, though, are the ones that are drastically lower than what the other comparable results are showing you. For example, this one is a 6.4. It is a lower position than most of my other results. Not a lot lower, but slightly lower. But the click-through ratio seems to be drastically lower on this particular page. So this one could be worth investigating. Is there something that I could modify that might make this search result a little more appealing for people to click on? Or should I simply focus on maybe adding more content to the page and trying to increase my search ranking? So this keyword data that you're given by Google can be used to make a lot of really effective decisions having to do with your website content, whether or not it's good as it is, or maybe it needs a little bit of adjusting, or maybe you need to build on your content. If your search rankings are not in the top 10 rankings, you may need to simply wait more time to let your site build up a little more authority, or you may simply need to add more content, or maybe a combination of both. Sometimes if I have a page that's ranked between 10 and 20, I might simply go to that page and try to add a couple hundred more words worth of content to it. And sometimes this can help to bump the search ranking up by just simply providing more content on that particular topic. So again, this keyword data can help direct you to the exact pages that require these types of changes. Now through analytics and also through the Search Console, you can find data on your landing pages. Which pages get the most traffic on your website? Which pages are getting the most traffic from search engines on your website? When I'm looking at a list of the individual keywords that I'm ranking for, a number of those different keywords could all be pointing to the same page. So a lot of times I actually find myself preferring to look at everything on a page-by-page basis, because if I'm going to be making adjustments, this is how it's going to be done on my actual live website. So I can look at, say, my most popular page and quickly pick that out. I can figure out whether that page is performing well in the search rankings by looking at the average position. I can figure out what the click-through ratio is on that particular page. And again, I can use this to help make some broad changes to my website. For example, this page here, I'm averaging a ranking of 12. I'm not getting a ton of search traffic into that page. I'm getting a little bit, but not a lot. It looks like I have a decent amount of exposure, but I'm really just not getting a lot of clicks. So I might want to go back into this page above most of the other ones because it shows a lot of keyword traffic potential from the impressions here, but I'm not getting a lot of clicks and I'm just outside of the top 10. So if I could bump this up into the top 10 and get my click-through ratio a lot higher, then this 28 here could easily skyrocket into a few hundred clicks in the same time period. So again, this information helps you to figure out which pages you should pay attention to on your site, which pages you should expand, which pages may simply need a little bit of adjusting to get everything working correctly. Now you also, as I mentioned before, have this same kind of data available to you in the Search Console. You have search analytics here where you can find out individual keyword phrases that are being searched. You can find out the pages. You can even, look into things like position and impressions and clicks and click-through ratio just like you can on analytics. I prefer to use analytics for this data though. I just find it the way that it's displayed, the way that the information is broken down for you, I find it easier to use on the analytics site. But you can use either of these. They're both obviously Google services. The data is exactly the same. So with that said, this kind of demonstrates how I look into the traffic data. Now, as far as the sales data goes, for this, you have to go into your Amazon affiliate account, and hopefully you have your website being tracked on a page or a website by website basis to where you have different tracking IDs that you can use for sorting. Now again, I've just fairly recently started this site. I don't have a lot of data built up, but I do have a lot of data built up for other sites that I wanted to use as a demonstration so I can show you how to analyze this sales data in the same way we were just doing with the traffic data. So with the sales data, you're wanting to look at a couple of different things. Number one, are the products that you're actually promoting, are they generating clicks? And are they also generating sales from those clicks? Now, I mentioned earlier that looking at a limited range of data can sometimes give you an unclear picture of what's really going on. So if you see, looking at a single month of Amazon data, that maybe you haven't generated a sale on a particular product, but you've sent some clicks to it, don't automatically assume that that product's not going to sell. Wait until you generate at least 100 clicks. I even recommend going as high as 200 or 300 clicks on a particular product before you completely roll it out as just being no good. If you've hit about 300 clicks on a product and you still have not referred a sale, that means you would be getting less than a 0.3% conversion rate, and that's probably too low to really make it worth your while. A lot of the products that I actually do get good conversion rates on, I can see at least 1% in most cases. So that would be one sale out of every 100 clicks. A lot of times though, I might even see 2%, 3%, even 5% conversion rates on some of these products. And a lot of times these are products that cost $100 or even $200 and they're still converting at 5% or so. This one right here, for example, I believe is $110. That one's converting at 5%. Now, another thing to consider is sometimes the data provided in your Amazon account may not exactly be clear. For example, this says I've sent 20 clicks on this particular Penzon comforter. However, it's also showing that I have sales on this Penzon comforter and this Penzon comforter, but without generating any clicks at all. Sometimes it's worth investigating, what are these additional products that I'm generating sales on? As you can see from these listings that I pulled up, one of these is a twin at a medium weight. Another is a full queen at an extra warmth weight. And then I have a full queen at a medium weight that I have sold. So what's going on here with this separate data is I'm promoting this particular style. That would be this one here at $110. So I'm promoting the full queen at the medium weight. But if somebody clicks on my affiliate link and they land on this page and then they decide, oh, well, I don't need a queen, I need a king, and they buy the king size, then Amazon puts that into a different column here. That's what this is, and that's also what this is. So I've actually referred 3 sales on this product. It's just different options for that same product. So my 20 clicks with 1 sale at a 5% conversion in reality is actually 20 clicks with 3 sales, which would give me a 15% conversion on this particular product. And the same thing is going on with this product here. I've just simply sold another option for that product. And so I can actually double this conversion rate because I have 2 sales on it and not 1. So things like this can kind of affect the stats that Amazon provides to you. Don't just take them at face value. Look a little deeper and try to figure out whether or not there are hidden sales essentially that you're referring. Now you're also going to end up with sales from products that you're not even promoting. You can see I've referred sales on all kinds of stuff from a website about down comforters, and some of this stuff has nothing to do with down comforters. Anytime that people just click from a link on your site to Amazon, if they don't buy that product but they go and buy something else, you still get credit for it. You still get the sale. And so you can actually end up generating more sales from just those random product purchases sometimes than you do from the actual things you're promoting. And there's nothing wrong with that. You make a pretty decent amount of money. This one site generated $2,000 in revenue in a single month, and the site just sits there, nothing being done to it. Now, in addition to the things that you're actually selling, I also recommend to look at the things that you're not selling. This part hides from you unless you really know where to look for it. It's all the way down at the bottom of this earnings report page. You want to click on View Items with No Orders under this Notes section. And this is going to open up a page here where you see the same thing you were seeing before, except now these are just clicks because you haven't referred any sales on these products. So you can immediately identify where am I driving a lot of traffic but not producing anything from it. And again, I recommend looking at more than just 1 month worth of data to make sure that what you're seeing is actually true. For example, there's nothing here in this 1 month that I generated 100 clicks on. I got close to it on this particular product, but still I didn't refer 100 clicks. So I can't automatically assume that this is a bad choice. Also, I would have to go back and look on my sales page, because sometimes you'll see that you have clicks on a product here and you haven't referred sales on it. But if you referred sales on one of the different options for that product, it might show up on your previous page and say that you didn't send any clicks to it, but you have a sale for it. So in fact, some of those sales might be coming from some of these clicks. And the only way you can really know that is by directly matching it up with those sales on the previous page. I also know from this particular site that these three products, I promote them more for reference value. They're actually discontinued. Um, every now and again, they become available for sale on Amazon in limited quantities, and so sometimes I refer sales on them. But then I also promote alongside of them the new products that are available. And this actually ends up being a really good search engine traffic attractor, because people search for these old discontinued products still, and yet affiliates don't target them anymore because they're not available. So I target them and lead people into the purchase of the modern product that has replaced these discontinued products. Same kind of concept can be used in pretty much any product niche. So the final thing here, product viability. This is as simple as going to Amazon and seeing whether or not you can still buy the product that you're trying to promote. You may also want to look a little deeper and make sure that, for example, the price that you're trying to sell that product for on Amazon, you want to make sure that it's not a ripoff. For example, if you can get it half price on another website, chances are you may never refer a sale on it. It just kind of depends on, um, whether people or not look into additional information on something before they buy it to see whether they have the best deal. These days, a lot of people do. And so you can't always assume that Amazon has the best price. Instead of just blindly checking everything that you promote, though, you can use this data, this traffic and sales data, to kind of help you to narrow your focus on a couple of specific pages of your site that might need extra attention or need extra research, or identify a couple of specific products on your site that need extra attention or extra focus. This way you don't end up going through your entire website every single time. You're just checking, a limited section of your site based on the information that you have available to you. So this is how you minimize the amount of time and effort that you have to put into this while still maximizing the results from it, maximizing your traffic, maximizing the sales that you're actually able to refer from this website. Now the next thing I want to mention has to do with your Facebook group. We have talked about the Facebook group in previous lessons, and so some of this will be a quick rehash of some things that I've mentioned before, but then there's some other ideas here that I have not mentioned. And all of these things can be used either collectively or individually to help increase the amount of traffic that you are able to drive from your group to your actual website. And it also helps to increase the engagement that you have with your audience on your Facebook group. This in turn, long term, will lead to more traffic as well. When you have a more engaged and more loyal following, they're a lot more likely to go and check out your content when you publish something new. So with that said, there are a number of different strategies that you can utilize on your Facebook group to help increase the benefits that it's delivering to your site. The first of these is something that I've definitely mentioned to you already, but is still worth re-emphasizing again. Share all of your new site content that you publish with your Facebook group. You create a new page on your site and you publish it. Right afterwards, you go to your Facebook group and you notify them, hey, I just published this. Give them a brief description of what it's about and then provide them with a link to that page. A really easy way to drive traffic to brand new content that you have just published. This can kind of help to get the ball rolling with other traffic too. Google can tell when people are visiting your site. Google sees that you're linking to your content from your Facebook group. Some of these people may even end up sharing your content with friends or putting a link as a bookmark or putting it on a forum or in another Facebook group even. So sometimes just a simple act of sharing this new site content, it can bring immediate traffic, but then it can also bring other long-term benefits with it. Now something else that you can also do, and it's not required, but you can do this kind of as a fun thing for your audience and also to help you to generate more content in a way without you having to actually do the work for it. And that's simply to share related news with your group. You can do things like set up a Google alert or go to Google News and set a topic for your hobby and easily get notified of different news and articles that are published on the internet that have to do with your hobby. And then you can in turn just simply go and share this information with your group. While this will not actually generate additional traffic for your website unless you're building a page about that news on your actual website and directing people there, this will still help to encourage more interaction within your Facebook group. You have more people engaging and interacting there. Then when you're sharing your site content, you're a lot more likely to have active members there reading it. Now also refer people to your own content. Now I know I have said to share all of your new site content already, but when you're engaging in discussions with people, especially when you're the person that owns and runs a Facebook group having to do with your hobby, you will oftentimes have beginners that come along in your group and they just want to ask questions. Or maybe you post a picture and they're like, oh, how did you do that? Instead of rehashing how to do something to somebody over and over and over again, you have this content on your website instead, and you just point people to the relevant content. So in a lot of cases, when you're just answering questions for people in the group, you can just point them to content that you've created in the past. For example, whenever me or my wife post a picture in our Facebook group of one of our plants or something like that, a lot of times people will ask, oh, well, how do you grow that? You know, what are your growing conditions or something of that effect? And we can just easily direct them to our website instead of having to explain over and over again how exactly this is done, especially since it's a pretty detailed amount of information. I'm briefly scrolling through here to see if I could find a quick example of something like that, because it's definitely a strategy that we utilize. Here we go. Just a simple posting that we made of a couple of pictures of some of our plants. And somebody comments, how do you grow this plant? What conditions? And in the reply, we just direct people to the website. And there you have the whole tutorial. And obviously, this is also where we end up having our affiliate links as well. So our past work creating this content can be used to help people out and also to fulfill our own purpose of driving traffic to the site and referring sales as an Amazon affiliate. Now, you also want to try to encourage discussions within your group. This can be posts like what you just saw, where you just simply share what you're doing in your hobby that particular day with the group, get people to talk about it. It could be other people sharing the same type of stuff, or just talking about general topics within your hobby. That's something where, like, sharing your content or sharing the related news can also kind of tie into that. When you share this content with your group, don't just share it, but try to strike up a conversation about some aspect of it with your group. This helps to encourage that interaction. It helps to bring more people into your group, helps to keep people more active in your group, which in turn will help to drive more traffic to your website. Now also, ask for content topics. If you're not quite sure what people really are interested in, what information they want to learn, or just simply what kind of hobby-related content they would be interested in reading, a really easy way to find out once you have your group built up and you have, members there, just ask them. Take a little poll. What kind of content would you like to see on my website? What kind of things would you like to learn? What would you like to know about, our hobby? Simple questions like this, number one, can help to encourage discussion, but then you also help yourself with getting some really specific ideas for content that you can kind of have some proof ahead of time that that content is going to be well received because people ask you for it. Now you can also do something that I refer to as compile popular discussions. This could be one of a number of different things, really. For example, in your group, you might have people that share their own related news posts or share their own site content, for example. Or maybe people just strike up a conversation about a really interesting topic in your hobby, and a lot of people engage in that discussion, and you just end up with a lot of really great content as a result. You can consider taking some of that content and kind of rehashing it on your own website. Make sure you're not violating anyone's, intellectual property. If people are posting their own images or something on your website or on your Facebook group, you would want to personally contact them to get permission to repost that kind of stuff on your own website. But beyond that, just simple posts that people make, like for example this one. This guy is a vendor coordinator for the Carnivorous Plant Show in the Bay Area in California. I could simply take this information and create my own post on my website about the Bay Area Carnivorous Plant Society and the Carnivorous Plant Show that they have as an annual thing. Provide some information about it, and then when people search for this topic on Google, chances are they're going to run upon my website with information about it. So you can take just simple things that people share within your group and use it as an idea for a content topic on your own website. Simple things like this can result in some really unique ideas that you may not have thought of before, and some of them can actually be really great sources of traffic as well. Now, you can also utilize other Facebook groups and even other websites, especially forums, bulletin boards type of websites. You can utilize them in the same way that you do your own Facebook group, basically. However, you do want to make sure that what you're doing is not going to get you into any trouble. You want to make sure that if you're posting in a Facebook group or on a forum, check their rules first. If you can't find rules that tell you whether or not you can, for example, post a link to your own website, then ask, contact the owner or the administrator and get special permission to do so. And then do the same thing that you do on your Facebook group. Share your content from your own website onto these other sources. This helps you to build links. It also helps you to drive more traffic. It also helps you to build more authority and build more audience over time by linking up with all of these other relational groups of people that are interested in your hobby. Now, something that you can consider doing, it's not a must, but it can have major benefits if you can get something set up for this, is seeking a cross-promotion partnership with either another Facebook group or a forum, or could even be a website, like a e-commerce kind of a website that's related to your hobby. For example, in my hobby, there are nurseries or even individuals that sell plants, and a number of them have their own website. If I could work out a deal where I directed people to them to buy plants and they directed people to me for information on growing the plants, it would be a very prosperous partnership. We'd be helping each other out. Obviously, things like this, you may not be able to get set up in any given hobby. In my particular hobby, a lot of the nurseries, a lot of the people, even individual growers especially, that are selling these plants, they do not have a lot of marketing knowledge that that allows them to kind of tap into these more advanced strategies. And so if you kind of approach these companies or people that you believe would have a strong need for something like this and present it in the right way to them, it can be super, super appealing to them. And, you may find people that would jump on this. I know in my particular community of carnivorous plants, I could easily get a number of growers that would be happy to do this type of a cross-promotion partnership. The only reason why I'm considering not doing that is because I am also a grower that sells plants, and so I don't necessarily know for sure if I want to kind of cut myself off and get myself into a commitment where I have to direct sales traffic to other businesses when in fact I may want to be retaining that traffic for myself in the near future. So think about what your goals are for your own hobby site and whether or not doing something like this would be of benefit to you or not. Look for ways where you're not attacking a certain aspect of your hobby, but maybe other companies or people are going after that one specific aspect, and see if you guys can help each other out by exchanging the pieces that you're both targeting, essentially cross-promoting each other. Now, one of the final things I want to mention to you in this class is about guest content creators. This also could kind of stretch into the previous thing I was talking about with setting up partnerships with, as an example, in my hobby, other growers or nurseries or other websites that provide information, other Facebook groups or forums. Any of those sources in most hobbies, assuming that they're not, some big mega corporation. Obviously, you're not going to be able to really strike up any kind of a partnership with those types of companies. But, anyone that's operating more on an individual basis, which there are a lot of people out there like that, a lot of experts like that online especially. These are your ideal candidates for targeting this kind of stuff because, they get to make the decisions for themselves, for their own business. And so they don't have to kind of go through chains of command to kind of get approval for this sort of thing. You want to be dealing with the decision maker. And if the decision maker is also the person that runs the business and the person that you're ultimately after for this type of thing, those are, again, your ideal candidates. So with a guest content creator, I've briefly mentioned this sort of thing in a previous lesson where you can try to find people that would be willing to create content for you for your website, especially for topics that may not be your direct area of expertise within your hobby, and yet people are interested in that sort of stuff. A great example with mine is Sundews and Utricularia. I grow a few sundews, but really not a lot of them, and I only have one utricularia. I really don't have a lot of interest in them. And yet, between those two types of carnivorous plants, there's something like 400 species of them. That's a lot of potential content. That's potentially a big portion of the carnivorous plant community even that would be looking for information about that. And personally, I will not be able to put that kind of stuff on my website unless I decide to utilize a strategy like this, where I get somebody else to try to create that content for me. Now, this could be done in a number of different ways. You could obviously try to pay somebody to do that, but I really would not recommend getting stuck in a situation where you want a couple hundred pages worth of content created and you have to pay somebody else to do that for you. That can get, pretty expensive. However, if you approach this from a different perspective of I scratch your back, you scratch mine, you can oftentimes find somebody that might be willing to do this content creation for you completely for free. How you achieve that is by helping them out, by offering them some kind of a cross-promotion partnership. For example, if I were to find a grower that specializes in sundews and utricularia and has a lot of knowledge and information and even grows a large majority of those 400 species of those plants, and they also sell those plants, that's somebody that might potentially be willing to create that content for me. I say, hey, you create pages of content for each of the different species of these plants to publish on my website, and my entire website will be promoting your nursery for those types of plants to buy. All those pages of content could cross-promote his nursery if they want to go and buy those particular plants. And I could even offer them, cross-promotion opportunities, say, within my Facebook group. When people are looking for sundews or utricularia in my Facebook group, bam, I direct them off to this guy. So that way, I retain the portion of the hobby that I'm interested in, the part that I want to be pursuing and targeting, and I'll let somebody else take over the other part. I let them get the benefits from all of that, but in turn, I'm getting benefited too because I'm building this massive resource. I'm building this audience. And ultimately, I'm the one that can tap into that stuff whenever I need to in the future. So something like this, while you do pass along a lot of benefits to the person that's actually doing that content creation for you, it's got major, major benefits for you in the long run too. And so, if you can find something like this or try to arrange something like this within your hobby, I would definitely jump on it in a heartbeat. Now again, everything I've been talking to you about today in this lesson, for the most part at least, is optional, but I would recommend for you to really think about what your goals are with this hobby site and think about the different tactics that I've been talking to you about today and try to determine which ones are the best for you, the best for your hobby, or the best for your plans for your hobby site going forward. Use this stuff to help increase your traffic and increase your sales. And again, this isn't something you have to jump right into and try to get it all done today. This is ongoing work into the future that you perform on your website. So now the classwork checklist here, it's not quite going to operate like the checklists from the previous classes because obviously this is not work that you just have to go through and do one step at a time and work your way through the whole thing. This is more gradual, ongoing work. So here are my general recommendations as far as everything I've kind of been discussing with you for this particular class. The first thing is to create your future content list. Do research if needed to make sure that you're going to be targeting topics that are of interest and targeting topics that people are actively looking for on search engines. Again, you will be using that list going forward whenever you want to create new content on your site. Refer back to your list, pick out a new thing, add it on your site, and then you go and you cross-promote that new content. Next, check your traffic, sales, and product data. I recommend once a month on average. If you have a lot of content, a lot of products, or even a lot of different websites that you're running, feel free to reduce this frequency, but keep in mind, the more frequent you're doing it, the less likely it is that you have those traffic leaks standing around on your site for a prolonged period of time, which causes either a loss in traffic and or a loss in sales. Whenever you create new content, make sure you're sharing it. Share it on your Facebook group, share it in any other place that you can come up with that you feel like is a good candidate where you can attract new readers, new audience members, but to do so in a way that's not going to have people pointing fingers at you and saying, you're spamming. Make sure you get permission if you're posting your link in places other than your own Facebook group. And finally, seek long-term partnerships. This could be with fellow Facebook group runners, fellow website owners, fellow hobbyists, even other business owners within your hobby. It doesn't really matter as long as those people have something that you can tap into, knowledge, their own audience, their own website traffic, and in turn, you end up sharing the same types of things with them as well. So you guys are helping each other out. It's not a one-sided relationship there. All those partnerships, both parties should be benefiting in some way, form, or fashion. So I truly hope you have enjoyed everything that I have had to teach you, both in this lesson and this entire series having to do with these hobby websites. I know my hobby is a big passion of mine, and so I think it's important that Amazon affiliates learn not just to build a website, but to build a website about something they're actually interested in. Because the information that they can provide, the recommendations they can provide will be much better when they're actually involved in that and, you know, have firsthand knowledge of that subject. You simply end up with a better website for your audience. And as a result, this brings better traffic and sales in the long run. This is how you really build up um, what in some cases can be a pretty massive business. You know, you can grow this initial hobby website into a full-blown hobby blog basically that covers everything related to your hobby. Obviously, you know, you'd probably need a number of people to be helping you to really tackle a big project like that. But, you know, you start small and you build up your audience and see where it takes you. And there are a lot of these hobby topics that can really lead into some massive audiences in the future if it's done right. So, um, you know, think of that going forward. Think about where this website uh, could end up, what you would like to develop it into, and slowly try to work it into being what you're picturing for it. And in turn, you'll be rewarded by growing a really nice audience, building a lot of traffic on your site, and obviously the ultimate end goal, referring a lot of Amazon affiliate sales on a regular basis. So I thank you for participating in the Hobby Azon series and truly hope you have enjoyed it.